When analyzing the power dynamics of the Android Saga, one encounter that often gets glossed over but deserves far more attention is the hypothetical matchup between future Trunks and androids 19 and 20. While the anime and manga don't directly show Trunks fighting either of these two androids in real time, there's enough narrative evidence and contextual power scaling to paint a very clear picture of how this encounter would likely play out, and more importantly, what it says about Trunks' power level during this stage of the arc. If you enjoy conversations like this and want to take part in deeper Dragon Ball discussions, I highly encourage you to join the Dragon Ball HQ Discord server, link below in the description. We'll be diving into this topic and more over there. Now, without further delay, let's begin. Future Trunks wasn't raised in a world of tournaments and training sessions, he was raised in a war zone. In the history of Trunks Special, we're shown a bleak timeline where Goku dies to the heart virus, and the rest of Earth's defenders, Vegeta, Piccolo, Yamcha, Tien, and even Krillin, are all wiped out by the androids. This means Trunks grows up in a reality where not only is Goku's influence absent, but also his proper training infrastructure, forcing him to solely rely on future Gohan, who himself is constantly on the run and battle damage. Despite these setbacks, Trunks manages to become a fully fledged Super Saiyan, something that only a handful of characters in the main timeline had even achieved by this point. This alone tells us a lot. In the main timeline, Vegeta needed to train under 450 times Earth's gravity and suffer immense emotional frustration before assessing Super Saiyan. Trunks achieves it under sheer emotional trauma, and does so without Saiyan-tailored equipment or formal key instruction. That suggests that he had the latent potential to achieve greatness regardless of circumstances, and this is further reinforced later on when he's able to spar with Vegeta in the hyperbolic time chamber upon arriving in the main timeline. Now, from a direct power scaling angle, Trunks' performance against Mega Frieza and King Cold cannot be understated. Mega Frieza was stated to be stronger than ever, implying that he had surpassed his Namek self, likely even above 100% Final Form Frieza, who pushed Goku to Super Saiyan on Namek. Yet, Trunks casually slices through him mid-sentence, no effort, no warm-up. Not only that, but he vaporizes King Cold, who, while never showing his full power, was confident he could use Trunks' own sword to beat him, implying some significant strength. The fact that Trunks dispatches both of them effortlessly proves at bare minimum he's stronger than Namek Super Saiyan Goku, and potentially stronger than Goku was upon returning from Yardrat. When analyzing power levels in the early stages of the Android Saga, 19 and 20 serve a very unique role. While they're very clearly not the top tier threats of the arc, they are crucial benchmarks for measuring the strength progression of the Z-Fighters post-Frieza, and they mark a turning point in how artificial beings scale compared to natural-born warriors like Goku and Vegeta. Let's start with their purpose in the narrative and in power scaling. These two androids are the first real test of the Z-Fighters after the 3-year training period, which was sparked by Future Trunks' warning about the android threat. Goku, Vegeta, Piccolo, and the others all pushed themselves to new heights in preparation for the androids, expecting a new level of danger beyond anything they had faced on Namek. So when Android 19 and 20 show up, they become the lime test for how much everyone has improved since the Frieza saga. At a glance, 19 and 20 seem formidable. They easily sneak up on the Z-Fighters and begin causing chaos. Now, when analyzing how the fight between Trunks and these androids would unfold, it gets pretty interesting. During the 3-year gap following the android warning, there's no direct indication that Future Trunks engaged in any training during that time. While it's not unreasonable to assume he continued training, especially given the improvement in his strength since we first seen him become a Super Saiyan after Gohan's death, there's simply no evidence confirming that he did. Because of this, it's generally safe to assume that Trunks remained at roughly the same strength level he displayed when he defeated Mecha Frieza and King Cold 3 years prior. With that in mind, we can scale his power to what it was at that moment in the story, and at the time, it's implied that Trunks was around the same strength as Goku after returning from Yardrat. Some fans point to a statement from Gohan where he notes that Trunks' ki feels similar to Goku's. This led to the belief that Trunks was only as strong as Namek Super Saiyan Goku. However, as I explained in a previous video comparing Namek Goku to Mega Frieza, which I highly recommend watching, there's a big difference between key signatures and actual power levels. At this point in the story, only 2 people had ever transformed into a Super Saiyan, Goku and Trunks. So when Gohan says Trunks' ki feels similar to Goku, he's referring to the type of energy, the unique signature of a Super Saiyan, not necessarily its strength. This is consistent with how ki is perceived elsewhere in the series. For example, when Mega Frieza and King Cold approached the Earth, the Z-Fighters immediately recognized Frieza's presence based on his ki signature alone, because they had fought him before. Furthermore, it doesn't make much sense to assume Trunks was only as strong as Namek Goku, especially considering that Mega Frieza is stated to be even stronger than he was on Namek. Although the exact increase in power isn't specified, it was significant enough for Frieza to believe he could now defeat Goku. Keep in mind, Goku only narrowly beat Frieza on Namek in a drawn-out and intense battle, yet Trunks easily annihilated Mecha Frieza in just a few blows, something Super Saiyan Goku was never shown capable of doing, even with the clear power advantage. So yes, Trunks was definitely stronger than Namek Goku. After that, Trunks briefly spars with Goku to gauge how strong he really is. He even uses the same techniques that he used to instantly cut down Frieza, but this time Goku effortlessly stops the attacks using just a single finger. Both fighters are noted to be holding back during this exchange, but it's clear that Goku has the edge. He blocks Trunks' sword strikes with ease, showing superior control and reflexes. While this hints that Goku would likely win in a fight, the scene also implies that the two are relatively close in power as Super Saiyans. Androids 19 and 20, however, are operating on an entirely different level compared to what Trunks had previously faced. When Android 19 first engages Goku, it's immediately clear that Goku, despite not being fully overwhelmed by the heart virus, was demonstrating power beyond what he displayed during the Yardrat era. This is supported by Tien's shock reaction to Goku's strength. Remember, Tien had sensed both Trunks and Goku 3 years earlier, so his astonishment here reinforces the idea that Goku had significantly improved. On the other hand, Piccolo had more reserved reaction, not because he was unimpressed, but because he understood that Goku was still holding back. Having trained alongside Super Saiyan Goku for 3 years, Piccolo had a solid grasp of Goku's true capabilities. Regardless, both reactions imply that Goku had grown considerably stronger. However, Dr. Dro's concern during this battle wasn't about Goku's raw power, but rather the potential malfunction of Android 19, due to his inability to properly absorb Goku's energy. In terms of speed, Goku was fast enough to prevent 19 from grabbing or hitting him, which was necessary for energy absorption. But Goku's offensive power still wasn't enough to deal real damage to Android 19, even before the heart virus fully kicked in. Given that, it stands to reason that both 19 and 20 were stronger than future Trunks at this point in the timeline. If Trunks had been the one to face them, there's virtually no chance he could have won. More importantly, Trunks would be unaware of their energy absorption capabilities. In a realistic encounter, it's very likely that he would eventually use a Ki Blast, not knowing that either android could absorb it. Doing so will only make them stronger, widening the power gap even more. Even if Trunks avoided the energy attacks, the androids, being stronger and likely faster, could overpower him physically and absorb his energy through direct contact. And even if we were generous and assumed Trunks was on equal footing with them, the moment they managed to absorb its energy, they would gain the upper hand without hesitation. Now, if Trunks had spent those 3 years training, his chances of winning would certainly improve. However, it's difficult to estimate exactly how much stronger he would become. Unlike Goku, Trunks wouldn't have had a sparring partner capable of pushing him to his limits, and as a result, his potential gains would likely fall short of Goku's. And again, the Goku who initially fought Android 19, despite being stronger than Trunks realistically could be, was still unable to deal meaningful damage. So ultimately, even with some training, it's reasonable to conclude that Trunks would still lose a battle against these androids, making the outcome of this matchup fairly straightforward. For everyone who had made it to the end of the video and walked with me on this journey, I thank you. You're an irreplaceable fan that I'd like to be a part of the main Majin Bird family, and I implore you to join the Dragon Ball HQ Discord server in the description. Here I'd like to garner a core fanbase of Dragon Ball fans where we can celebrate and discuss the miracle that is Dragon Ball. Thank you.